Immerse yourself in the lives of the BYU Cougars. This is Deep Blue. This is Deep Blue with Jason Shepard.
Thanks for tuning in for a new episode of Deep Blue. This is the show where we get to know the person behind the number that you see on the field or the court. These are the true stories of BYU athletes from their own mouths. And while my guest today is not a former BYU athlete, he is certainly an athlete to say the least. He is the BYU Basketball Director of Player Development. My guest today is Jordan Brady. Jordan, thanks for taking a few minutes. It's good to talk with you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to be here.
All right, so as we mentioned, BYU Director of Player Development for men's basketball. I think most people, just based off of the title, kind of have an idea of what that job entails, but I know there's always nuances to every job. So when someone asks you, oh, what do you do? What does that mean? What do you tell people?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love my job. I love the opportunity that I have to work with these guys, and it's unique. I would say that I have a unique opportunity where I'm able to work on a one-on-one basis with all of our players, all of our staff, most of the coaches, and so I really have in my role, I get to know a lot of people on an individual level, which I think is really cool. I mean, kind of the summary of my job is to just make sure that we're using all of our development resources and development staff to help these guys progress on the court and off the court, and making sure that everything that we do fits in within what we're doing as a team.
Most people will understand the on-the-court part of that in developing their game and developing their skills, but you touched on something that I wanted to ask about, and that is the player development away from the basketball court. First off, how important is that part of it to help the on-the-court production?
Yeah, it's extremely important. I mean, we kind of take a holistic approach to the development, and so the academic piece is obviously the biggest off-court piece that we focus on, and we have a great person in place there. And then, some of the social stuff that these guys do, and, I personally don't coordinate a ton of the appearances and that kind of stuff, but just making sure that these guys have what they need and that they're supported where they need it.
We'll get into, the players that are coming in this year and certainly the hype around that. But when you look at the guys that you were around last year and looking ahead to the type of guys that are coming in this year, how much do you enjoy just the day-to-day interaction with these guys?
Yeah, the day-to-day interaction is incredible. That's really what it's all about. I look forward to working with these guys every day, working with our staff. And so for me, it really is. It's a kind of a joy to come to work every day, and it doesn't even feel like work. You just right. You just kind of take that development approach and stay focused on what you need to do to help these guys progress, and then communicate with all of the appropriate parties. And so it's kind of a natural flow. But to get to know this new group of guys has been a lot of fun. To reinforce the relationships with the guys that we have in coming back is awesome. And even with those guys, they have new goals. They have expectations from what they did last year to what they want to build onto this next year. And so helping communicate that and making sure that we're on track is a lot of fun.
I've been around a lot of coaches over my career, and I know that it's on to the next. You got to constantly be moving forward, and certainly in today's landscape, you've got to be able to act quickly in terms of moving forward. But I do want to look back on last year for you. There was so much new about last season with the new coaching staff and a new system and new players and whatnot. Have you personally, and you as a staff, really had a chance to reflect on what you guys accomplished in year one as a group?
We have a little bit, but I don't think that we've kind of sat around and reveled in the fact that we had an incredible season. I mean, we all understand what we accomplished, and we don't take it for granted. We know that we had a special group of guys last year, and to be able to have the run that we had in year one of Coach Young's tenure here, I think was really impressive. But he's not the kind of guy that's going to just, he doesn't revel in it. And we kind of have a next season approach. And just like you said, you have this hard reset at the end of each year going into the next season. But from what I've experienced in professional basketball compared to this transition from season to off season here is you have you have certain things that kind of connect the seasons in a different way, mainly like recruiting, right? The recruiting thing is something that always goes on. And even though I'm not directly involved with the recruiting of our new student athletes, it's something that it doesn't have a stop date. And, we have these dates where we're not allowed to get out and visit guys or whatever else. But you have these little things that kind of tie the seasons together in a different way than I'm used to.
From a big picture standpoint, because I know there's always going to be tweaks from one year to the next, and you're going to have new personnel, and that obviously brings, certain necessities in terms of changes and things that you want to move forward with. But from a big picture standpoint, is there anything that you guys as a staff have talked about that you really want to either see change or improve from year one into year two?
I know that there are some conversations going on of things that we would like to do differently or areas that we would like to be better. And I think that a lot of that has focused around the guys that we've brought in, the recruits that we have. We know that we needed to get better in certain areas, and so we recruited guys that would help us be better in those areas that also still fit in with Coach Young's style of play and the way that he wants to play offensively and defensively. So I would say that's probably the main area there where we've discussed, like, what do we need to be better at, and that basically means going out and finding those guys that maybe fit in a little bit better or fit the way that we want to play next year.
One of the things, and this has been a theme that I've talked about in multiple episodes of this podcast, and a lot of it has been with basketball. But I know Coach Young has talked a lot about fit. And I know when he says fit, he's not just talking about on the court. You have to be a fit for BYU. You have to want to be here. And we realize that there are a lot of different components that go in when people are choosing where they want to go. But, I've had a chance to talk with a couple of the players on BYU Sports Nation and some other places. One of the things that has stood out is these guys do feel like really good fits at BYU, and I know that's really important for you guys.
Yeah, it is, and we really lean into the uniqueness of BYU when we're going through the recruiting process for a few reasons. We all understand the value in having the right kind of guys on your team. You want to have guys that are coachable, that are going to fit in. And so that's always an interesting dynamic, is to be able to mesh the new personalities. And that's something that we'll be focusing on a lot this offseason, especially towards the end of the summer when we have more of our guys on campus and start doing a little bit more team stuff. But taking into consideration the fit, it's not just the fit at BYU, but it's also, do they fit in with Coach's personality? I know that he pays close attention to that during the recruiting process, and just kind of feeling how, if they fit in with what he believes in on the court, if the personalities are a fit. And so I know that he takes that into consideration. And then, just obviously fitting in with the team, expectations and discussing the role and that kind of stuff is a big part of it as well.
When you look at the roster for last season, there were new additions. That has been ramped up even more here in year two with you guys as a coaching staff. And I know the excitement level, I know you, as you're out and about, you hear it, you hear from fans, you feel the buzz, and you're in the middle of it. Fans are so excited about what this season can become, and it's because of the players that you guys have brought in, the high caliber of athlete that has come into the BYU program. Let's talk about a couple of guys. And First and foremost, let's start with AJ DeBonsa. Everybody wants to talk about AJ. I think what he has done, beyond anything that he's done so far on the court or videos that we've seen and dunks, plays, the thing that stands out to me the most is how excited he is to be at BYU and to promote BYU. He's truly all in as a BYU Cougar this year. You get to see him a lot more on a day-to-day basis. What can you tell people about AJ, both off the floor and on the floor, that should get them even more excited than they already are?
Yeah. So first and foremost is there's a lot to be excited, not just with AJ, but with the team coming up. Definitely a lot of talent in place. The first thing that I realized about AJ on the floor is he's a better basketball player than even I realized with him coming in. He's a very special talent on the basketball court, and he he wants to be great. He works at it. And so all of my interaction with him away from a game, I'm super impressed with him as a young man. He's got a unique maturity about him for somebody of his age and for somebody of his stature. He knows who he is. He knows that he's one of the top basketball players in the world his age, but he has a really special humility about him. And I think that stems from the way that he was raised. I've been really impressed with the time that I've spent with him and his father, with both of their humility and just the way that he has raised his son. I think it's really impressive. And to be honest, I look at the way that he communicates with AJ and the way that they go about their day-to-day lives given the situation that they're in. And it's impressive. It's something that I actually, it makes me want to be a better father. It makes me want to, hold my kids accountable more, because I really do think that he's done a tremendous job of that with AJ, and it's cool to see their relationship.
One of the other very highly touted recruits coming in is Xavion Staten. Funny enough, as I was driving into work today, I'm driving up the hill, and there's this super tall guy on a scooter with his backpack on, riding up the hill. And
Easy to recognize.
There he is. There's Xavion.
Oh, yeah.
Right there. He's another guy that's very excited to be here, highly touted, as I mentioned, one of the top bigs in the country, and he chose to come to BYU as well.
Yeah. Super impressive young man, super impressive basketball player. And again, he's showing flashes of things that I didn't realize that he was capable of on the basketball court. So, just in the few weeks that he's been on campus with us, he's made a lot of improvement. And he's so committed. Literally right before I was walking over here, I walked through the player lounge. X is in, getting his study hall in. He's committed as a student athlete. He's got his plate that he went and got from the nutrition center. Like he's 100% in on everything that we're helping him do and the goals that he's trying to accomplish this summer. And so, we're really excited for him. And he, he's super unique. His length, his athleticism, his feel around the rim. Like there's definitely a lot to be excited about there.
We've talked about two bigger guys. Let's talk about one of the smaller guys, and I know that's saying something coming from me. They're all bigger than I am. Rob Wright is. I'm still amazed that Rob is going to be leading this team. I was so impressed with him. Wasn't as happy last year with what Rob did because it happened against BYU, but now bringing him into this program, I had a chance to talk with him on BYU Sports Nation, came away super impressed. I'm really excited to see what he can do because his game's a lot different than what we saw with Yegor last year. His scoring ability is certainly a little bit more advanced, but what can you tell us about Rob and what he brings to the table?
Yeah, you asked earlier about what are some of the areas that we want to be better as a team next year, maybe play differently, and one of those areas was specifically addressed with the way that Rob Wright plays basketball. Like he lives in the paint. He can get by his defender. He can get in the paint. It's something that we're really excited about because we feel like not only is that going to help us be better, but because of the way he plays, we feel like we can help him really improve as a basketball player by taking what he's really good at and just helping him make different decisions that are going to help lean into what we have on our roster and help him be a more efficient and better basketball player. So I think it's going to be a really good relationship there. But yeah, we all remember very well the game that he had here in the Marriott Center, and so it is exciting to have him on our side of the ball for this upcoming season. And we really feel like his style of play is going to benefit all of these guys that we have a lot, and these guys are going to help him be a better player as well. So it was a very strategic move, and definitely a lot of good fortune that we were able to get him here.
I know a lot of the focus is on the new guys coming in,
Sure.
and it's kind of the shiny new toy, and everybody's super excited. But there's a lot of reason to be excited about the guys coming back, and Richie Saunders, and obviously Dawson Baker and others. This is a group that when you look at the returning production with the talent coming in, people are excited for a reason.
Yeah, we and that's true. We're going to have a good mix of new talent that we feel like their style of play is going to help us fill some of the some of the areas of opportunity that we had from last year, but then having those guys like Richie and Dawson and Kaba that were standout players for us last year that are going to be able to help develop the continuity. And so, everything on paper feels really good right now for sure. But we know that we've got some work to do. But, between now and when we tip off in the fall, we feel like we're going to be able to get these guys where they need to be.
I have never seen a more demonstrative dunker than Kaba Keita.
Yeah.
It is impressive. I assume that you probably never get tired of seeing him just go right to the rim and destroy it.
Well, you would think that after seeing it for so long that it wouldn't be surprising, but he's still even last week in our team sessions, he'll go up and dunk stuff that you weren't even considering that he might do. He still surprises us all the time. So he super impressive athlete, and his timing for the ball while it's in the air is just incredible.
And that was your story too. That was your game growing up, right? Out of Vernal, Utah.
A little bit, but not like Kaba. Goodness.
So let's talk about you. We've talked a lot of basketball. Born in Salt Lake City, but raised in Vernal, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So you went to high school in Vernal. Your recruiting experience was different than a lot of the guys that you're coaching right now. We're going to get into that shortly, but let's start with growing up in rural eastern Utah. How would you describe your childhood?
Yeah. I really enjoyed growing up. In fact, I saw a couple of my buddies from high school over the weekend at Father and Sons camp, and it's really cool to grow up in a community where it's a one high school town. Like, you represent not just your high school and your teammates, but you represent the community, and the community follows you. It's definitely a different experience than we live up in Salt Lake now, and there's a lot of high schools that are in close proximity, and so it's clearly different than that. But we just loved it. We loved growing up together. We loved the experiences that we had in high school together, and just the kind of the loyalty and the camaraderie that you develop through kind of the small town living is just special and unique. So for me, I wouldn't trade it.
What was your family dynamic growing up? Where did you fit in, brothers, sisters, all that stuff?
So I'm the second of 7 kids. I have an older sister who she's the only one of us that didn't play college or professional basketball. Super talented in other places, and she was massively supportive for all of her younger siblings. I don't think that any of us would have been able to do the things that we did in sports had it not been for her support, and we have fantastic parents. And so 3 younger brothers, 2 younger sisters that all played college or professional basketball, and so we're definitely a sports family. And that's kind of what it was for us growing up is, my parents have traveled millions of miles to watch their kids play basketball games all over the country at different levels, and that really was just kind of the life. So
were your parents athletes? To produce that many collegiate and some pro athletes, were they athletically inclined as well?
They were. So my mother she went to Snake River High School in Blackfoot, Idaho, and she was a basketball player, and she did really well there. And my dad was an excellent athlete, never played formal high school sports, but I remember watching my dad play in city league and rec leagues, and up until the time I was 10 or 12 years old, my dad's still dunking a basketball, still making jump shots. His kind of the recreational prowess that he had for sports was definitely a big influence in what we did.
I think what you were describing in terms of the miles put on, and I'm sure financially supporting everybody and the travel and all that, the commitment from parents to allow their kids to be as good as they can be, I don't think gets talked about enough. And I think if you look at athletes in any sport who are successful and doing well, I think a lot of that, if you could probably trace it back to very supportive parents, those that did whatever they needed to do to make sure that their kids were given the best opportunity to do that. It sounds like that was exactly your upbringing.
100%. You appreciate it when you're in it, but you can't fully appreciate it until, my appreciation for what my parents did for us growing up has just grown exponentially. In fact, the appreciation that I have, you mentioned Vernal and the community. I mean, I had fantastic high school coaches. We had fantastic educators and leaders in the community, and the influence that each of those people, and especially my parents, had in my life and the life of my siblings. It's an appreciation that continues to grow as my relationships with my children grow. And and all joking aside, one of the biggest things is I cannot believe that my parents sat on plastic bleachers for the number of hours that they did, because I can barely make it through 1 or 2 basketball games, and they were there. It's really incredible, just all of the sacrifice that they make, and they were in it, they loved it, they made it exciting for us. They made each of us feel like it was their number one priority, and to be able to do that with 7 children was really a special thing.
All right, I've got a very, very important question to ask you, but I'm going to ask you after the break. We will take a quick break here on the Deep Blue Podcast. We'll have more with Jordan Brady, the BYU Basketball Director of Player Development, joining me here on the Deep Blue Podcast. Back after this here on BYU Radio. Family, legacy, and Cougar pride come together on the BYU Radio podcast, Royal Legacy. Host Lauren McLean dives into the deep family ties that run through BYU sports. New episodes drop every Thursday on the BYU Radio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome back to the Deep Blue Podcast here on BYU Radio. I'm your host, Jason Shepard. My guest today, BYU Basketball Director of Player Development, Jordan Brady. And I teased before the break, Jordan, that we were going to ask the very, very important question. Were you a BYU fan growing up? Were you a BYU family growing up?
Partially. So
there was a little hesitation. I got worried.
We're going to be fully honest. So big BYU football fan growing up, okay, and then Utah basketball fan growing up. So I remember fun stories. My grandfather, my mom's dad was a big BYU football fan, and they'll tell funny stories about him having this little portable radio that he used to take with him to like high council meetings and things, and he'd have one of the pieces in his ear, and he's listening to the BYU football game while he's in these meetings, and he's kind of like letting everybody know in the room what's going on in the game and everything. So there are definitely some BYU roots. I mean, some of my fondest memories are coming out to BYU football games for youth activities, and I actually was the kid, like I was really restless growing up, and so I remember the hill out where there's the Cougar statue at the top of the hill outside the stadium. A group of kids were out there throwing the football, and so I spent the better part of one of those games out there just on that hill playing football with a group of kids that I had no idea who they were. But and then my high school football coach, Kirk Belcher, actually played football here back in his day, and so there were some strong ties for me to be a BYU football fan, and so I've always had appreciation for that as well.
Let's go back to basketball and talk about your high school career. How good of a high school player were you?
I was a pretty good high school basketball player. Had some fun, and it wasn't. When you're in it, you're just playing basketball. You want to make the varsity. You want to get some varsity time. Talked about some of the culture that we had out there at UNA High School. There was an incredible group of upperclassmen that I was able to look up to and aspire to be like those guys when I was a freshman and a sophomore. And so, high school was special. Yeah, a lot of fun memories. Love the memories that I have with my high school teammates, and fortunately, I was able to continue to play a little after high school as well.
Well, and one of the things that I really enjoy about having these conversations is talking to athletes who obviously went on to play college and pro, whatever the sport is, but when they realized that they had a chance to play beyond high school, because for a lot of players, it ends in high school. But you were, as you just mentioned, you had a chance, you were good enough that you could continue to play. When did you know that was going to be a reality for you, and what was your recruiting process like?
Well, yeah, so for me, for as long as I can remember, I dreamed of playing professional basketball. Like grew up, we lived in basically downtown Salt Lake City up until I was about 9 or 10 years old, and then my family moved out to Vernal, to the Basin. But my dream was always to play for the Jazz. I was like in the driveway every day. It was a constant for me. So for me, like there was never this point in time before I became a college basketball player that I'm like, okay, I have a chance to do this. Like it was just always my expectation. Like I'm working towards this, and I at the time I didn't really know how it was going to happen, but like that's what I was doing. So I think I saw inside myself probably more than what other people saw. When I did realize that I was going to have the opportunity to play college basketball, it probably started around my junior year. I didn't dress varsity as a sophomore out there, and then I was able to start varsity as a junior, and we were on a pretty good basketball team. And people kind of started to talk to me a little bit about trying to come out and play AAU basketball here in Salt Lake, and coaches would introduce themselves to me a little bit and like, hey, keep working hard, you have a chance type of a thing. And then was able to have kind of a breakout senior year, and wasn't like heavily recruited by a lot of local schools, but I did have a couple of options and ended up going with, I went and played my freshman year of basketball in Glendive, Montana at Dawson Community College. And so, that was a pretty pivotal decision, but I just remember one piece of advice that I got when I was being recruited was go where they want you the most. And I felt like the coach that was recruiting me there really just showed the most interest in kind of the things that he was talking to me about. I think that he believed in me in a similar way that I believed in myself. And so that's where I ended up going to play.
So was your freshman season then before your mission?
Yes. So I actually played my freshman and sophomore seasons before I went on my mission. And
was a mission always in the cards for you?
It was mostly. So there was a point kind of in that time frame where like senior year of high school, freshman year of college, I was thinking maybe I just want to continue to play basketball and move on with this part of my life. And then I transferred from Dawson Community College to Salt Lake Community College, which was a fantastic basketball decision, but I don't know that it was the absolute best basketball decision I could have made at that time. But it was a great life decision because I got with a group of guys who on that Salt Lake Community College team had several guys that were return missionaries that were just really fantastic examples for me. And also another one of my teammates that and I don't know how I do want to share a little story since you asked about kind of the mission thing is on that Salt Lake Community College team, I had a teammate named Jackson Marlowe, who was a big time player. He was a highly touted high school recruit, played at Oklahoma State for Eddie Sutton before he transferred to Salt Lake Community College. But he had Native American heritage, and he was he decided to transfer to Salt Lake Community College, wasn't really sure about the LDS culture that was in the area. And so he was a little bit guarded. But one day I had mentioned to him that, hey, the Book of Mormon is actually a history of some people that we believe to be ancestors of Native Americans. And he was like, oh, really? And so I ended up rooming with him on the road a couple times, and so I shared with him a little bit about Moroni, and he was like, dude, Moroni's a stud, and Captain Moroni, we're going through this stuff, and it was at that time sharing those experiences with Jackson Marlowe that I was like, this is probably really similar to what it is like to serve a mission. So I had decided at that point that I wanted to serve a mission, so after my sophomore year of college, decided to put my mission papers in and headed out to the Philippines for 2 years.
So how was the Philippines?
It was amazing. Yeah. I really enjoyed my mission. It was a fun time in my life. I was all in. It was incredible. I still, and I just love the Southeast Asia area. I've had a chance to go back there a few times since my mission, not specifically to my mission, but to Southeast Asia. And I think that serving the people in the Philippines just, it fostered a love for not just Southeast Asian culture, but for cultures around the world. I really have a strong interest in learning and getting to know about a lot of different people and cultures throughout the world. And to be able to serve the people in the Philippines in a gospel aspect for 2 years was an incredible experience. It was a lot of fun.
When your mission came to an end and it was time to come back and pick things back up, did you already have a basketball plan, or was it still up in the air and you had decisions to make?
Yeah, I had already signed. So before I left on my mission, I'd signed to play at Utah Valley. And so, like I said earlier, I loved Utah basketball. My dream was always to play basketball up at the University of Utah, and Dick Hunsaker was one of Majerus' assistant coaches. And so when he got the job at Utah Valley, he actually started recruiting me to go there as a junior college athlete when they were still competing JUCO. So I had basically narrowed that decision down to Salt Lake Community College or Utah Valley. Ended up going to Salt Lake Community College, and so I wanted to play Division I basketball. That was my goal. And so I had signed with Utah Valley before I left on my mission. So I knew all along that I was going to come home and continue my basketball career there. And that was good for me to know that I had that ready to go when I got home from my mission. And so I came home and just jumped right back in.
Were you part of the first class of the 4-year, going from to a 4-year university?
So, well, their first season as a 4-year university were my first. So their first 2 years were my first 2 years on my mission, which that was like the Ronnie Price heyday.
Gotcha.
Some really good years for Utah Valley basketball for sure. So, so the seasons that I played, I don't know exactly which seasons they were, but we were still in the moratorium or the suspension period from being able to compete in the NCAA tournament, which we had a couple teams that were probably good enough to do it. But however, my wife and I were the first graduating class that were able to put Utah Valley University on our diplomas. So there is an asterisk there, but we didn't graduate from the state college. We graduated from the university, which is, I guess that's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned your wife. Mm-hmm. You met your wife at Utah Valley. Yep. So how did the courtship get underway?
It was tough. She made me work. So I always remember it. But I was home.
And what is her name?
Her name is Brooke.
Okay.
So Brooke and I met. She was playing volleyball when I started up at Utah Valley, came home from my mission, and I was at a women's basketball game. Volleyball team had just finished practice or workouts, and they came in and sat down, and I saw her walk in, and I went up, talked to her. I didn't get 2 words out of her, but we ended up, it so happens that a bunch of my basketball buddies would hang out with the volleyball girls, and so we ended up hanging out quite a bit, and eventually was able to convince her to get out on a date with me, and the rest was history.
Your time at Utah Valley turned out to be very productive in terms of relationships. Certainly, you found your eternal companion, but you also met a real go-getter assistant coach by the name of Kevin Young while you were at Utah Valley. And obviously that relationship started around that time and has continued.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting that you identify that because I do look at my time at Utah Valley and without question, meeting Brooke and developing that relationship was the best thing that I took from Utah Valley University. And then just the happen chance to have met Kevin, and he's been a huge part of my basketball journey, both as a player and a coach. Without question, I can say that I'm not who I am in basketball today without Kevin Young. And so, obviously it's not, you don't develop those relationships thinking that they're going to benefit you professionally or through your life. But the relationship that we built is one that's been fun. We've had a lot of basketball opportunities together. And so for me to be able to be here and supporting him in this role is a lot of fun.
Well, and you were telling me that the relationship has been strong for a long time. And you said that, you guys were kind of paired up, and so you worked a lot together that way, but you also hung out a lot. You guys went to Vasa, and for those that maybe aren't local and don't know what that is, it's a local chain of gyms, and so you guys would go hang out at Vasa together. So you guys have been tight for a while. Yeah.
Coach Young he was the guy that would work me out when the team was on the road. So I came home mid-school year, started at the beginning of second semester in January. And so as a return missionary redshirt, I had to get in shape. So we became workout buddies. We played a lot of open gym pickup basketball together, played in a lot of city leagues together that has been a lot of fun. And then kind of the next thing was he actually left Utah Valley, went over to Ireland, came back and got involved with the Utah Flash. And so he was with the Utah Flash for my senior season at college. And then I left and went overseas right after college, but came back mid-season, started working out with the Flash as a practice player when he was on staff there, and then ended up playing with them for 2 years. 1 year he was an assistant coach, and then the next year he was the head coach. And so we played together there. And then he hired me for my first coaching opportunity. So he was the head coach with the Iowa Energy, and I was planning on playing another year in the G League, but he called me up one day and said, hey, like he knew I always wanted to get into coaching, and we had talked a lot about that, and he offered me an opportunity to transition into coaching. And at that point in my career, I had learned that I'm not going to make it to the NBA, and I wasn't getting these offers from overseas that were going to allow me to take my family and go, live in one of these incredible destinations and play basketball. And so even though I felt like I still had some basketball to play, I just felt like that was the right move for that time in my life. And so I went and joined him in Iowa to start my coaching career.
Well, and you mentioned playing overseas. Luxembourg, that's where you played, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
was it just you and Brooke, or did you have kids at that point?
We went over there with no kids and came back with one. So yeah, our oldest son Wyatt was born in Luxembourg, which was really exciting. And Luxembourg was a fantastic place to play and to live, and we really enjoyed our time there. And so it was fun. It was a great learning experience for me. There are a lot of different levels of professional basketball in Europe, and so they range drastically. Luxembourg it's probably a lower level league. Really, talented American imports. We also had European imports that were really good, but it's not like the ACB in Spain. It's not like the EuroLeague stuff, but it was a great opportunity and experience. And what it did was it provided me the opportunity to realize that I wanted something that was more familiar and similar to what I had experienced in the States. And so I just transitioned my focus to getting back to the States, and I wanted to play in the G League. And
so correct me if I'm wrong, was that the same? I know he wasn't there very long, but that was the same time where Lee Camard was with the Flash as well, right?
Lee Camard and I were teammates on the Utah Flash, yeah.
Yeah, because he's been a guest on this podcast before. He was telling the story. Obviously, I get to work closely with him, calling the women's basketball games.
Yeah.
There's quite a connection with BYU and it was then the D League.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the D League, but a lot of connections between BYU and the Utah Flash.
Absolutely. And so, Brant Anderson, the former owner of the Utah Flash, I talk to him about this once in a while, that and to look at the number of people that went through the Utah Flash in the short time that they were here in Utah, and the basketball careers that matriculated from him choosing to bring a minor league team to Utah, it's been incredible. There have been, Mark Madsen, Brad Jones, Kevin Young, myself. It's a long list. There's a lot of players that were able to do really good things because he brought that team to Utah. And so, Lee obviously started his professional career there as well, and ended up leaving partway through the season and starting his international career. But yeah, Lee and I met Lee and we started playing pickup basketball together here at BYU when I was in college, and then we ended up being teammates for part of the season there with the Utah Flash, so it was a lot of fun.
Well, and I know that when Lee was, and I actually asked him about this during his episode, when he was introduced as the head coach for the women's basketball team, you guys as a staff came to support him. And I thought that was cool, but obviously there's the relationships there.
Yeah, I think that, it's the right thing to do, but it was more than that. I was really excited to see Lee. I've seen and stayed in touch with him throughout his coaching career, and he's obviously been here as an assistant coach, and he's put in his time, and he's learned and grown under some really good coaches, and so it was exciting to see him get that opportunity. And then obviously having the Flash connections with Kevin, like we really felt like we wanted to be there to support him, and we're going to continue to support him. We're excited that he's in that position, and it's been a lot of fun to just collaborate with him on certain things between the men's and the women's team, and so it's really cool to have that familiar relationship in place.
Okay, I do want to ask you one more Utah Flash question.
Okay.
It just came to me, and I'm so glad that I remembered to ask you this, because if I had forgotten, I would have remembered after, and I'm like, man, I really should have asked him this question. There is an infamous moment in Utah Flash history, the Brian Russell Michael Jordan rematch, that really wasn't that. Was that when you were there? It's for those that don't know, obviously, Jazz, Bulls, NBA Finals, every Jazz fan, myself included, Jordan pushed off, we know. And Brian Russell, former Jazz man, has always said, of course he pushed off. And he always wanted to play Jordan one-on-one. And so there was this promotion for the Utah Flash that they were going to have a rematch. Well, as it turned out, Brian Russell was there, and it was a guy in a Michael Jordan jersey. It was not Michael Jordan coming in, and there was some backlash and things like that. Were you there Was that when you were a player there?
I was. So that was my first. That was my first home game as a member of the Utah Flash.
Really?
So, and I mean, truthfully, it was kind of cool, right? I'm back in my home college arena, completely sold out crowd. I mean, it was packed, and I was starting for the local G League team, and so that was just kind of a cool moment for me. I have no idea what happened at halftime because I was in the locker room, but for me, it was cool. It was a cool experience to be able to start my first G League game in what was then the David O. McKay Center. I think it was still called the David O. McKay Center.
It was.
And packed house and, tons of, sorry, my family, my wife, everybody, and that was really for me, I've just had an incredible opportunity to be able to share my basketball journey locally here in Utah with so many people. I mean, to play high school basketball, college basketball at 2 different levels, to be able to play for the Flash for 2 seasons, and to be able to have family and friends and people that have supported me in my basketball journey to be a part of that. It really is just super special and priceless. And then to be able to transition into coaching and I had opportunity to work for the local G League team, the Salt Lake City Stars, and be involved with the Utah Jazz, and now here at Brigham Young University. To be able to do what I love and to share it with the people that I love has been really an incredible experience.
So while a lot of your coaching experience came in the G League, you went over to China for a little while too, right? What was that experience like?
We loved Hong Kong. It was actually Hong Kong, but yeah. So I don't know that I ever really saw that on my radar, but working in professional basketball, I had made a connection with a guy over there that does a lot of personnel stuff for some of the teams in the CBA, and he had always mentioned to me that he's like, man, you need to come over and coach. And so when they made some coaching transitions at the Milwaukee Bucks and they brought in Mike Budenholzer, I wasn't able to stay on staff with those guys. I just kind of felt like that was the right time to do that. And so he had been contacting me, and he had an open coaching position. And so we wanted, I already mentioned that I just loved that part of the world, and my wife had lived in Japan growing up. And so we felt like we wanted our kids to be able to experience some international living. So we headed over to Hong Kong, and we absolutely loved it over there. It's our branch over there was fantastic. It was just a really cool experience, basketball, gospel, life, and unfortunately it was cut short due to COVID, but we still now to the day just look back on our time in Hong Kong. We were only there for maybe 7 or 8 months, but we have a lot of really good friends that were living over there with us at the time, and just an incredible experience on all levels. Basketball is huge over there. They love hoop in Asia.
Yeah,
they do.
It's massive, and obviously, being Jimmer talking about his time over in that area and just how big he got, but I know how the NBA is huge over there, so it is definitely a basketball country, to say the least.
Yeah, they love basketball. It's exciting. It is. Yeah, it was a lot of fun on a lot of levels. Big arenas, they sell them out, and they're fanatic about basketball.
All right, so let's bring it back to BYU. Let's go back a little over a year ago. How did the opportunity to come to BYU and join Kevin Young and this staff present itself? Take me through the story.
Yeah, so Kevin and I stay in touch, and so we had been texting, or I had texted him to reach out and just kind of see how things were going with him, and I knew that he was he was going through the interview process again like he had the last couple of years, and so we had texted the weekend before this announcement was made for him that he accepted the job here at BYU, and he called me shortly after everything was released, and I just remember him saying, he's like, hey, you probably didn't see that coming. And I thought, well, actually I did. I kind of felt like that. I knew that they would reach out to him when everything transpired with Coach Pope, and but I wasn't sure if he would, be on board to do it or not. But it was really exciting to see the news. And so when he got hired, we started talking about the possibility of me joining the staff, which I was really excited about. And so just kind of as things went down the road, this was the position that developed. And It made a lot of sense because I was and am living up in Salt Lake City. My oldest son's a junior now at Brighton High School, just finishing up his junior year. And so I always knew that I wanted to continue with basketball, but I wanted to stay local, just have a little bit more settling, just a little bit more settled for my family. And so when this opened up, I was hopeful that I would be able to have an opportunity to join the staff, and it ended up working out.
Because you were out of basketball for a while, right? What were you doing?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I was working with a tech company based in Central Valley, California, as a program manager with electric powertrain retrofitting. So very different. Well, a lot of similarities, but very different from basketball coaching. But a lot of the skill set applies, and it's not completely different than what I'm doing now as a director of player development. But I'd been doing that for a couple of years, and I knew my heart was always in the game of basketball, and I knew that there would be a time for me to be able to get back in. But I didn't see it happening like this for sure.
Well, I want to go back as we begin to wrap things up. I want to go back to something that you had mentioned when you were talking about your first game with the Utah Flash and how much it meant that you were local, that you were in the state of Utah where you grew up and family was close and they could come and watch it. When you look at all of these opportunities that you've worked for and achieved, you mentioned being able to play at Utah Valley and Salt Lake Community College and having opportunities with the Flash and then, with the Utah Stars. A lot of your experiences and things that you've been able to achieve have come locally. For you then to be able to add BYU to this mix and for it to continue to be local around family and friends, how much does that mean to you?
It means an incredible amount. I mean, it really does. And so you asked about my family growing up, if we were BYU fans. So I married into a hardcore BYU family. So my mother-in-law, possibly the biggest BYU sports fan walking earth, and I'm not overstating that at all, but her entire family are BYU people. And so my children are big BYU fans. We love watching BYU. I knew people from the former staff, and so I always wanted to see BYU do well, and that was fun. And so as the opportunity at BYU started to matriculate, I think one of the things for me was like, man, this is going to be really cool for my family. My kids will love this. Like, it's just going to be a really fun and neat experience. And then to be able to be here at BYU and have also the gospel influence and the gospel impact is something that's extremely important to me. And so there were a lot of factors that made this attractive to me, and I was hoping that it would work out. So yes, I am very excited about my opportunity at BYU. I am not the most excited in my family about the fact that I work with BYU men's basketball. So my kids are extremely excited. My wife, my family, like it's been a really cool thing.
You definitely scored points with the mother-in-law, it sounds like.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, last question. And we've gone through all of your experiences that you've had as a player, a coach, helping guys develop, you developing yourself as a player and a person. What part of your life experience do you think you could share with the next generation of players, whether that's AJ DeBonsa right now or a random 10-year-old kid that comes to a BYU basketball camp? Based off of your experiences, what do you want to share with the next generation?
Yeah, I think, you just want to be ready for opportunities when they come. And so that, being prepared, that's a gospel principle. We know that, but it really is the truth. And so one of the biggest things that I share with our guys is these guys are all super talented basketball players. Most of them, if not all of them, want to move on to play at some level of professional basketball. But it's your habits. So your talent, your ability, what you've done to this point can get you there. But once you get there, it's going to be the habits that you've developed. It's the day-to-day work ethic, and it's really who you are as a person that's going to keep you there and to be able to help you stay focused on the right things. And so, just develop those good daily habits. Like consistency is one of the most important principles, in my opinion, for athletic success. And then also being able to have being able to endure some adversity, how you react to things that happen that are outside of your favor. Because when you look at these guys that have made it, and everybody at some level has a story or an experience where things didn't go their way, but because of the way they reacted to that, the decisions that they made after that, they were able to learn and grow from that. And so I would say that those two things, just like consistency and then being able to work through adversity, are two of the things that you want to have to move on to the next level.
Jordan, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you carving out some time and spending the afternoon with me to do this. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
All right. My name is Jason Shepard. Ben Hall produced this episode. Deep Blue's senior producer is Cleon Wall. You can download and subscribe to Deep Blue on all podcast platforms or find all episodes on the BYU Radio app. Deep Blue is a production of BYU Radio.